ora koutou katoa, no mai hara mai ki UFC on Sky. International Fight Week, UFC 290 did not fail to deliver, giving the biggest, most exciting fight card some fans have ever seen. Before we get into it though, let's take a quick look back at welterweight legend Robbie Lawler, who after 21 years made his final walk to the octagon in a night to remember.
Here is the former undisputed UFC welterweight champion, Ruthless Robbie Lawler, for his 47th pro fight, 25th in the UFC. This is a man who made his UFC debut at UFC 37 all the way back in 2002.
I've been doing this for a long time, fighting pretty much my whole life. I just love competing and I love what I do. It's play to me.
Robbie Lawler is built different than most people. An absolute savage. He always goes in and throws everything with bad intentions. When you talk about what fight fans like to see, Robbie Lawler embodied all of that. He's one of the most incredible athletes to ever compete in the sport.
Ruthless Robbie! You talk about born to fight, enter Robbie Lawler.
There are going to be times where we all come and we all go, but you leave lasting memories. Robbie Lawler has lasting memories.
This kid swings to kill you. He smashes people. He is relentless. He is ruthless.
Ooh, Robbie Lawler. He wants to knock you out and take your head off.
He's a pure savage.
Big shot and another. What a finish for Robbie Lawler.
That's how you fight championship fights.
Oh! Oh my!
Unbelievable.
Wow. Oh, he tagged him. Oh my goodness.
Big bombs by Robbie Lawler. Robbie hit him with a big shot.
Yeah, he did.
He's hurt. He's hurt.
This may be it.
That's it. That's it.
It is all over. Robbie Lawler remains the welterweight champion.
Robbie Lawler. He's one of my favorite fighters you ever watch live. It's always a treat to get to see him perform.
It's just been an amazing journey because I showed everyone I'm a true fighter. I come to fight. No matter what happens, I keep coming, and I'm trying to knock people out.
It's just nice to end my career like this. These fans have been great this week. Thank you for the years of support.
Featuring on the main card at UFC 290 was New Zealand lightweight Dan Hooker, who got the split decision win over Jalin Turner. And here to talk to us about that and more is head coach Eugene Bareman. Eugene, welcome back to the show.
Hi, Rev. Good to be back. Thanks for that introduction.
No problem at all. Look, that fight that Dan Hooker had at UFC 290, first of all, when you sit back and simmer on it for a little while, your thoughts on that fight as a whole?
As a whole, I don't know, a couple of words to describe it. Nerve-wracking. But as a whole, you know, we live and die on the result. So if we get a win, that makes us very happy. So I'm pleased that we got the result. It was a pivotal fight for Dan and where he's at in his career. So to get that over the line for him means a lot for him and his career and the stage that he's in.
Explain to us a little bit about what you mean by this being a pivotal win for him.
Because he's like hanging around in between 15 and 10, and 15 and 10 are generally the guys that are always being challenged in terms of being shifted out of that top 15. Mm-hmm. So that 5 is usually the ones that are the most vulnerable for getting pushed out of the top 15, but they also are going to get opportunities to push into the top 10. So there's those 5 guys that sit in the most vulnerable position, and what you want to do is push yourself up into the top 10 where you feel a little bit safer and you can start to make a genuine like title run. So he's managed to kind of push himself to number 10. Kind of like, it doesn't, but it gives you a little bit of a safe zone to sit in.
Yeah, it really does. And you're so right when it comes to Dan in his career. And he's been wanting to, make that shift again at some point, and it just feels like it's working for him at the moment. What do you put it down to, Eugene? Because there appears to be in his last 2 fights a real shift for him.
It's hard for me to put it down to something. Dan always one thing about Dan is he's always very consistent with his training. He's like he's a true fighter's fighter. He's a true professional. So his training and his dedication has always been very consistent. What I think maybe is to switch is some mental shifts, and mentally although physically with his training and dedication has been consistent, mentally he's probably been less consistent in his approach and towards the fight and stuff. So maybe he's flicked a few things, he's flicked a few switches in terms of his mental approach to the sport, and maybe that I can't exactly pinpoint them. Those are going to be questions for him. But also he's riding off the momentum, like the boys are doing well. He's coming off a great win against a dangerous opponent that tried to push his way into the top 15, and Dan successfully pushed him back out and let that young guy know that he's not ready for this level yet. And now he's effectively pushed himself into the top 10. So a number of things, can't really pinpoint anything in particular, but probably mindset is the thing that's helped them the most.
Look, Eugene, of course, a lot of chat is coming out about Dan's injuries that he sustained and what he called a scratch at the end of his fight. But of course, he broke his arm and, damage to his face as well. So what's the update on him? How is he feeling? And when did he even sustain those injuries during the fight?
The broken hand, I believe, in round 2 at some point. I don't know the exact point, but sometime in round 2. And the fractured orbital or fractured skull. I'm not really sure. Maybe, I think it's on the same side as the head kick, so maybe it was that head kick. But he's undergoing surgery Friday or this weekend, and he's flying back. He'll be back Monday or Tuesday, so he's going to undergo surgery there and then fly back. And then I'm not sure what his recovery time is, to be honest, but I don't know, you can't deny the man's desire to win. When that man wants to win, there's nothing that's going to shake him from that. His desire to win is the most I've ever seen in any fighter. Yeah, Dan's desire to win and his pain threshold or tolerance for pain, it just can't be denied. It's the highest I've ever seen in any fighter. And when he puts his mind to it and he's determined to win, there's nothing that can stop him, and that's all that fight proves. Broken arm, fractured orbital. He is just willing to push and ignore any amounts of pain as long as he can secure the win. So, it's a special quality he has, and I was very impressed. I know damn well, but I'm still getting impressed to this day. So.
I was actually going to ask you what impressed you the most about him, and you've already said it. Because I thought there was, not a thought, you could see it. He broke Jalin's, will to carry on. Jalin just appeared to give up, and Dan had that effect on him. So, what was it that you worked on to approach this fight with Jalin? Because Jalin's no joke.
Yeah, so even though Jalin had a reach advantage, we still felt that Dan would have, being that Dan was one of the tallest people that Jalin's ever fought, we still thought that would be an advantage. The fact that Jalin's never fought someone as tall and as rangy as Dan, even though that Jalin had the advantage. So our plan, it was kind of twofold. Obviously, we had the part where we wanted Dan to close the gap a little bit more, but we had a lot of our plans surrounded about just giving him trouble on the outside, trouble that he doesn't usually see because he is always the longer athlete. So we did a lot of work on just getting the range right, evading some of those long shots and countering back with our own long shots, which we felt Jalin wouldn't be as comfortable with, given that most of his career he's fought and trained with people that are shorter than him without Dan's reach. And then obviously the second part of our plan was around just when Dan committed to going inside and some subtleties around him entering inside and what he needs to do inside. So we had about, I mean, it was when you're at this level, it is what it is. We had about a 50% success rate, I reckon, with the game plan. And then what we really had that got us over the line, given that that was 50% success rate, is we had Dan's desire and dedication to win. And that is what shone through that really got us this win. Is a combination of both those things, but mostly Dan's desire to push forward and win. Yeah.
I actually think that's partly why my throat is still a bit croaky, is because I was screaming the house down watching Dan's fight. It was just so exciting, you know, and it was really nice to see Dan get a win, you know, in old Dan fashion style. And, you know, another person that said that an advantage for Dan is that, an advantage for Dan is that Jalin hadn't seen someone like Dan before, was Alexander Volkanovski. He obviously featured on this card as well. You were also in his corner. What did you make of that, you know, pretty much a dismantling of Yair Rodriguez?
No, like everything went to plan, and it's a great night when everything goes to plan. He just, the impressive thing about Volk is you know how good he is. You've seen it for years. You've witnessed it. You've witnessed the growth, but he can still come out and surprise you. How good he is. And we already know how good he is, but then you're like, you come away from some fights and you're like, man, he's even better than we thought he was, you know? It's hard for me to give fighters positive comments, because I'm the type of coach that wants to lean towards, wants to critique them more than wants to encourage them, and that's my style. But sometimes Volk gives you no choice. Sometimes I have to say something positive about his work, his body of work, his art, even though I don't want to. Sometimes I have to. And me being me, I still saw some things that that he needs to work on, because that's just the way that I kind of look at things, quite negatively maybe some would say. But yeah, he surprised me how good he is, and everything went to plan. There were some key things that happened in that fight that really put it in our favour. So I was very happy with it.
Yeah, there was a lot of chat around, you know, Yair's unpredictability, him being such an unorthodox fighter. But of course, Blood Diamond was in the fray for Alex this time around to perhaps help Alex even more respond to that unpredictability rather than try and diffuse what Yair was throwing at him.
Yeah, for me, that was perhaps one of the flaws that happened in the fight. And what I mean by that is, we did, I felt, and I made it very aware very early in Volk's camp, that an over-obsession with some of Yair's unpredictability there's going to be an opportunity cost for that, because actually the unpredictability it can be quite easily mitigated and is very low percentage. Every 10 fights, someone might become part of a highlight reel. But there's some bread and butter things that need just as much attention as those unpredictable techniques that he does. And my argument is that those bread and butter things are the things that set up that unpredictability. So if you take care of the bread and butter and you focus a lot of attention on that, you're going to have to do, just by proxy, like you're just going to have to do less worrying about the unpredictable things. I felt probably there was a little bit too much focus on those things, and probably led to just the mindset not quite being right when Volk needed to attack, particularly in that third round. But it was a minor thing. It was only a minor thing. It was never going to change the result of the fight, but nevertheless, we're always looking for perfection. You're always looking for little mistakes in the game plan and the performance and the fight camp. And maybe there was an overemphasis on those things, which caused him to have a kind of a stagnant mindset when it comes to attack. The key was to make him miss. That was really the key. That was the whole fight. The whole fight kind of, for me, hinged on whether Alex could make Yair miss at range. And then once you make Yair miss, then you're going to get the feelings of vulnerability that everybody has, that Max had, that Ortega had. Because when you miss against a high-level opponent, you feel very vulnerable. When you feel vulnerable, you decide to lower your output and you don't want to throw. And that is effectively what happened. Then Alex needed to capitalize on that, and he wasn't able to the same effectiveness as he usually does. And I put that down to two things: that the range was slightly longer than he's not ordinarily used to, because it has to be for Yair, but also because he just in his mind was too worried about that unpredictability that was going to come, whereas I didn't think that. I thought he had mitigated all the risk of that. He needed to just go. And so me and Joe's job going into the third and during the third round was just to get him to kind of refocus and push forward with his offense. Eventually he did, and it had great results, right?
Yeah, exactly. And when you say that, concentrating on his offense, you're right. That is what he specializes in. Like when you see him in a fight, even against, a Holloway, he imposes his strengths and his skill set. It turns into his world. So yeah, it was when you say when he was a little bit reluctant to impose that. Yeah, that probably was a little bit of the difference there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. But like I said, it's a minor thing. It's a minor thing, but we're always looking for perfection. And we make adjustments and get better. This is what the best fighters in the world do. They analyze and go back to the drawing board and figure out where they can improve, where most people don't see any room for improvement. The best fighters in the world and the best teams in the world see massive room for improvement. So that's just part and parcel of what happens.
Yeah. And I mean, he got the job done. He beat the interim champion. What would be next for Volk now?
I think Volk's chasing the Islam fight again. Obviously, that was a controversial loss, depending on which side of the fence you think. Some people think Volk won, some people think Islam won. So there's a case for Volk getting that fight. Volk's still very shit on being that double champ, which is a very elusive achievement that most fighters fail to do. So he's trying to do that. And then he's still got options. He's got the guy he had the face-off with.
Tapuri?
Got his name, but yeah, I can't comment. I haven't seen him fight yet, so I can't comment too much on how that fight will go, but I know how the next Islam fight will go, and I think that we can make that a more successful venture if we fight Islam again. If we fight, what was his name?
Islam?
Tapuria.
Yeah, Tapuria. Elias.
If we fight him again, I'm not sure. I need to watch him fight, but against Islam, I know that we'll get the job done if that ever comes up again.
Yeah, well, it's good to know that he's got, exciting prospects. And of course now, so too does Israel Adesanya after Dricus Du Plessis defeated Robert Whittaker. First of all, what were your thoughts on that result?
Oh, no, I love the result, but I've made no qualms about stating that I can't be bothered fighting Robert again. And sometimes that might be just purely for selfish reasons. I mean, you got to remember, I've spent a lot of time watching Robert Whittaker videos and watching Robert video pad sessions, technique sessions, fights from 10 years ago, right up until the recent fights. I've spent a tremendous amount of hours watching Robert and dealing with Robert. And if I had the choice and I can study someone, the coaches can study someone fresh that we've never seen, it kind of like excites you and gets you a little bit more enthusiastic. And so it might be for selfish reasons that I wanted Dricus to win, but any other situation in the world, well, I'm going to back Robert for sure. He's a Kiwi, you know.
Yeah.
I have to back my fellow Kiwi, but in this particular instance, when it comes to Israel, then I have to back my Nigerian Kiwi. So
absolutely. And on that point, you bring up interestingly, because in our other interview you were talking about how the storyline is pretty much writing itself in terms of African heritage and that beef and all of that. And of course we saw that ignite in the octagon after Du Plessis beat Whittaker, when Izzy jumped into the octagon and said what he said in a very emotional way. But do you flip the switch now? Is it all eyes on Du Plessis for your camp and for Izzy as well?
I'll stand here. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna stay right away from that. I don't really understand it. I have a very particular job that I have to do. So yeah, right now Izzy's just got back from some crazy place with Mark Zuckerberg. He arrived today. He was in the gym this morning, just an hour ago, and we're working immediately towards the challenge of the South African Dricus. So and he proved he's a challenge, and he's going to be another big challenge. But they all are.
Yeah.
All are. If he thinks he's any different from the opponents that have come before him, he's not. He's just another puzzle. He's just another puzzle that we have to solve, and that we've had a lot of success solving those puzzles. So it's just another good challenge that we'll get our fingers into, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
How likely is that fight, do you think, to happen in September in Sydney, the turnaround?
I like that. I mean, that has to happen. Well, if well, it cannot happen, but then the South African will lose his shot at the title. So what I'm saying is we're fighting in Sydney in September. We just need to we don't know who the person is in front of us. It seems pretty obvious to me that they're offering that to the South African. If the South African doesn't want it, then it's going to go to the next best candidate, and then I'm afraid the South African will have to go to the back of the line again. So under those circumstances, can you see, is there a fighter on earth that's going to not fight, not take that championship fight? He has to. He has to. Don't matter if he's got, don't matter what's wrong with him after the fight. Suck it up, put some ice on it, wrap it up, and then this is your chance. This is your shot. This is what you had to do. It's what we had to do to get our title shot. It's what all the middleweight champions before them had to do. This is your chance. It's a quick turnaround. If you don't want it, then you're going to give up the greatest prize on earth, and that's fine. It doesn't really make too much of a difference to us. Then we'll fight Strickland. He'll gladly take it, because he's as much as controversial as he is, he's a real fighter.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's great. Then there's options there for Izzy as well. Before I let you go, Eugene, there's been talks about the UFC returning to New Zealand in 2024. Do you know anything about this?
Yep, it's coming in January the 30th. No, I'm joking. Should I say?
You got me real good.
No, sorry, man. I have no idea. I did hear this rumor as well, but I can confirm or deny whether it's true or not.
No, can't find. Well,
but I would love that. I would love that.
Absolutely, it would be so good for our fighters to just stay grounded for one camp, right, and be able to fight at home.
Yeah, well, the team and the New Zealand fighters have come so far since before COVID, right? We haven't had a fight like since a couple of years before COVID, and we're just at a different level now. The sport's at a different level in the country. So it's ready to come back to New Zealand, and just to have that environment and have all the people, the new fans that we've garnered over the years. It's time for them to enjoy the greatest show on earth.
As always a pleasure to kōrero with you, and all the very best for this new adventure moving towards UFC Sydney.
Awesome. Thank you, Rev. Thanks for the chat.
New Zealand lightweight Dan Hooker has just defeated Jalin Turner at UFC 290, and he joins us now fresh out of surgery, actually. Thank you, Dan, and kia ora, welcome back to the show.
Cheers, mate. Always good to talk to you, Rev. I've got plenty of time for you, chat. But yeah, I had surgery yesterday. I got out yesterday afternoon, so it's the day after, and it's all back where it should be. Everything is everything where it should be. Let's just say that.
Nice one. Well, it's good to hear that everything went well. But can you tell us a little bit more about those scratches that you sustained in your fight and what needed to be mended when you got to hospital?
Well, they took me to hospital straight after the fight, as they do. They whip you in an ambulance, take you off the hospital. Just snapped my ulna and my arm completely off in the fight, and then that led to me not being able to get my hand where it wanted to be, and he landed a head kick, and then I broke my, what is it called? Something over here. This bone, the bone of my cheek was snapped, but this one was in place. Just my arm was out of place, so they whacked a plate and a couple of screws into it and get it all back where it should be. So, yeah. Everything's taken care of, but we're just on the mend now.
Look, when you sustained those injuries, did you know it had happened at the time? And was that playing into your mind at any point during the fight?
Not the eye. I didn't know the eye was broken until a couple of days after the fight. I went and saw the UFC had booked me in with the orthopedic surgeon for my face, and I was like, what do I need to see a surgeon for my face? And then he went in, I went in there, and he showed me like the 3D scan of my head, and he's like, see this here? He's like, yeah, that shouldn't be like that. I was like, oh man, I didn't even know about that one. But nah, I definitely knew the arm was broken in the fight. When it's giving me some trouble, it's funny, there's like a moment after the first round and just before the second round starts where I like take a look down at my arm, and I was like, why isn't that working the way it should? But anyway, second round, like, kept throwing it hard. Third round, I definitely knew that it was broken in my head, and it wasn't until like I tried to, because after I dropped him, I tried to follow up with some ground and pound, landed my left, and I was like, I'm going to let that right go, try to get him out of here. Threw my right, and I felt it just, my arm just completely go out of place. And I was like, after that, I was like, oh, yep, game plan's going to need some adjusting here. I was like, well, I don't think I'll be able to knock him out anymore. I'll just stay on top and chip away with my left hand. And then I was fairly confident that I was going to get my hand raised with like the top control time in that third round.
Yeah, absolutely. It was quite convincing in that last round where the decision was going to go. I just want to talk to you about that decision a little bit, though. Split decision win. When we spoke to Eugene, he thought that, it was a bit more convincing than a split, that it should probably have been a majority.
Yeah, oh man, it is what it is. I don't really care about that. It's not anyone that sees my fights knows that I don't fight for the judges, because I know they're a pack of idiots that don't really know what they're looking at. So I try to avoid the board of idiots as much as I possibly can.
Fair enough. Fair enough. You don't want to leave it in their hands. Not in these later fighters. Well, that's been happening lately anyway. But what was it that got you over the line with this fight, Dan? Because, it's one thing to know that you've got an injury and things like that, but to still come away with such a dominant way of winning, to the point where it looked like Jalin, he just wanted out of there. He had had enough.
Oh man, it's just it's a decision. Every fight I've ever lost has been my own decisions that have led to it. So it's the same thing with every fight that you win. Everything is a decision. Like you can leave whenever you want. You can tap the round twice and you can leave the fight wherever it wants, or shoot a lazy takedown and give up a choke whenever you want. Like it's I just made a decision that winning this fight was more important to me than having a broken arm. Like it's just what it comes down to. You make your decisions as a man. That's the way you that's what you set on, and this is what you want, and you work so hard for it. You train so you train your entire life to be in that position. It's just it's more important to me than win that fight than to preserve any kind of superficial damage.
After that fight too, there was a photo posted of you and Jalin Turner on beds together, smiling away. What was that conversation like to catch up with them post-fight?
Yeah, they wheeled us in, and he was sitting on a thing. I said, we'll grab a picture. I pulled my phone out, grab a picture, and he pulls his phone out. We started getting in trouble by the doctor there. She's saying, no pictures. And so I was thinking, he takes it and he's like, man, he was saying to the doctor, he's like, look, we just had an absolute war. Like, we're trying to, we can't just grab a little snap together. But yeah, we grabbed a picture, and he said, man, I wasn't expecting you to be that tough. And I was just like, you're bad. I was like, bro, you didn't watch any of my fights. You know what I mean? So, yeah, like we just shared, have a little chat. It's nothing but respect there. It was like a very, share like a special thing when you have a fight like that with someone. There's definitely, and he was just saying to me that, man, now that I've fought everyone from Australia and New Zealand, can I please come down and train with you guys at City Kickboxing? And I was like, yeah, you should just shoot the boss a message and come down and get some training in, mate.
That was actually my next question for you, actually. A lot of people have been talking about that, about Jalin Turner's want to come down to Auckland and New Zealand and train at City Kickboxing. What do you think a fighter like him would bring to the environment? Do you think he fits in the vibe?
Oh, that's up to the boss. That's up to the it's up to the boss, man, Eugene. If he can get that one across the line, I don't think I don't care about the missing the weight. The missing the weight doesn't make old Huge too happy. Maybe he's got to bring the fight dietitian on board if he wants to make the move down down these ways.
Fair enough. Actually, you've just reminded me that he did miss weight before the fight. What were your thoughts when that happened?
Oh, I'm like too late in the piece for that. For me, it's not the kind of the course is set. My mind is firmly locked into the task at hand, so I can't let stuff like that distract me. It's 20% of his purse, which is what it is. But yeah, you can't let something like that distract you at that stage of the fight, or attempt to influence your game or influence your mental approach at that stage. You kind of just have to ignore it, if you will.
And despite all of that, you might call it adversity or perhaps disadvantages going into the fight and getting injured within the fight, you get the win. Now you're back into the top 10 in the lightweight division. So what does this mean for you now? The world is your oyster right now. Yeah, pretty big. I had old Dana White shoot me a message, and he's just like, man, he was just tipping his hat, saying how impressive it was and how big it is for my career, and there's going to be some pretty big things next. He also said that he had Donald Trump gave him a bell the other day and was asking about my fight. He was asking, man, I saw that Hooker broke his arm. He was like pretty impressed by that, if you will. So it's pretty crazy to have people like Dana White and Donald Trump reaching out to you and kind of letting you know how big of a deal it was. Because to me, it's just another day at the office. It's not really anything special. But once you have people like that trying to talk to you and tell you how impressive it is, it kind of just changes your perspective a little bit. Yeah, I think deservedly so, to be fair. You've gained a lot of, I know you've already had respect from people from, the career that you've had, but you'd most definitely have a few more people on board after a fight like that.
Yeah, well, it's definitely back in the mix, it's beat a guy like Jalin Turner, especially with a broken arm, and in the fashion that I did, is definitely like a clear sign to the division that I should be back where I was, back fighting in the top 10, back in, the main events, back in the standings, back fighting the contenders and working myself towards the bite. So the belt. So it's just, it's exciting times. It's exciting time.
So what does recovery look like for you? Because obviously that would be the priority right now before we see you back in the octagon. And there's rumours swirling of an Auckland card next year. You have maybe a little sights on that, perhaps?
Oh, definitely. I've got, just not getting hit in the head for about 6 weeks until this bone clears up, and then let these old bones sit around these plates. But that'll keep me out of the gym for a couple of weeks, we'll say. But I'll be back in there helping the boys get ready in any capacity I can for the big UFC Sydney card. And then from UFC Sydney, we'll just keep the ball rolling. And I heard that they're dragging the UFC back into New Zealand. So, man, if I could get a top 5 opponent or something like that, a big fight down in New Zealand, sell that out and put on a show the way that I do, that'll be pretty much perfect for me. That nothing really gets me any more excited than an opportunity like that.
Absolutely. And when you think about it, next year will be 10 years in the UFC. You made your debut in Auckland. It might, the stars might align for you.
Oh, there will be. No, that's the first time I've thought about that. That will be, 2014. I made my debut, 2024. Come back and main event again. That'll be pretty wild. I haven't even given that any thought.
You're welcome.
Years, a decade. A decade inside of the UFC, competing at the highest level. That's it's just I think a testament to the amount of punches I can take
for a long period of time.
Yeah.
Well, look, before I let you go, Dan, what are you getting up to before you come back home?
Yeah, I got me and my mate Oscar over here. He's taking care of me, driving around to the doctor and stuff like that. So we're off to we got David Copperfield tonight. We're gonna go see some magic tricks, and then Friday night, the night before, they got a Spice Girls, a little Spice Girls. What do you call them? Not the actual Spice Girls, but it's like a Spice Girls reunion. We thought that'd be pretty funny to go along there and have a bit of a laugh at that, have a little bit of a sing along just before I fly back to New Zealand. So it's a couple good shows in Las Vegas before we head back, and then I'm back in New Zealand, back in the gym, back doing what I love.
Nice one. Look, do you have a favourite Spice Girl?
I think my favourite was Baby, because I was blonde. I was blonde when the Spice Girls were big, and my sisters were making me listen to the tape in the car non-stop. So I do actually know a few of the songs, thanks to the torture my sisters put me through all those years ago. So I might be able to sing along, but we'll go Baby Spice.
Nice one. I was a Sporty Spice fan myself, but yes, we do. We know all the words. But you have fun. You have fun, Dan. You've earned it. Have a great time and safe travels home as well.
Very good. Thanks, Rav. It was always a pleasure.